And I saw an angel standing in the sun who cried out in a loud voice to all the birds flying in midair, come gather together for the great supper of God. So again, the sun, Psalm 19, the symbol of the bridegroom, right? Martial and marital, right? Bridegroom, marital, okay? So martial, the word martial in martial arts is marital scrabble. And the word martial art, abbreviated M-A, backwards is M. And God revealed himself to Moses as I am who I am that I am what I will be, saying that the spirit inside of him is God, and that's why they should obey him and leave Egypt with him and so on and so forth. Okay, and of course champion C, Ham, Pi-on, and Abraham, Abraham. Okay, so it say, gather together for the great supper of God, so that you may eat the flesh of kings, generals, and the mighty of horses and their riders, and the flesh of all people, free and slave, great and small. So versus Goliath, he said he's going to cut off his head and feed his flesh to um, the birds. And Goliath said the same thing to him. And he said he's going to cut, the whole world will know there's a God in Israel when he does. Okay, so that's Revelation 19, 17, and what have you, 17 through 19 or something. Okay, or 17 and 18. Has the parallels to 1 Samuel 17. I don't think it's coincidence. It's Revelation 19, 17 through 18, and it's 1 Samuel 17. Okay, and of course the woman that was Saul's daughter that he was supposed to get, Michal, is very similar to the word Michael, who cast down the devil. And I talk about romantic justice, it's very much connected to that. In Revelation it says outside the gates are the sexually immoral. Okay. So this was a greater victory, right? So it's, the kings, generals, the mighty. It's not just one Goliath and one Philistine army. It's the whole world. And my martial art challenge is the greatest martial art challenge in history and the last valid martial art challenge ever. So I'm the last valid martial artist. So Christ as the mighty warrior, a mighty one, the Son of God who's a warrior, okay, as Exodus 15:3 says he's the first and the last, and that's another connection there. So I'm the first wise person, the first wise martial artist, African martial artist, the last, what have you. Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies captured together. The kings of the earth and their armies gathered together, wage war against the rider on the horse and his army, right? They're waging war with psychology and the flesh and so on and so forth. Propaganda, fantasy, theater arts, okay. But the beast was captured, and with it the false prophet who had performed the signs on its behalf. With these signs he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped its image, right? The mark, the boundary, okay, the idolatry and so on and so forth, and the boundaries of the corporate state and so on and so forth. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. The rest were killed with the sword coming out of the mouth of the rider on the horse, and all the birds gorged themselves on their flesh. So you see, it is a book about Royal African Falcon martial arts. Again, Genesis 10, Nimrod. Hebrews an Afro-Asiatic language. Israel, okay, is right by Egypt, right by Africa. Okay, obviously Africans, as you see today, that migrated on to Europe and so on and so forth, were very much involved in the reproductive processes of ancient Israel. All right, John 16:15. All that belongs to the Father is mine. That is why I said the Spirit will receive from me what he will make known to you. So it says all that belongs to the Father, right? Again, they're not supposed to rebel against me. They're not supposed to raise their daughters to shun me, and so on and so forth. 2 Corinthians 4:4. Satan, who is the god of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe, right? The minds, right? What they think and what they perceive, what they think they should do. They are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. Remember, it's a light of justice, a warrior light of justice and righteousness, Isaiah 51. Okay. They don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is the exact likeness of God. So my spirit, okay, my glory is my spirit, which they seek to cover up with fumes and poisons, because the flesh is like, is a medium. It's a way to see the spirit. The spirit comes into me, then you see it. So they can interfere with it to some degree and make it so that, as sickos, they make it so it seems gay and make it so it seems, white and Jewish, and that's what they're doing. It's very, very immature, very immature. When you think about Nero, when you think about jocks and frats and emos and goths and childish politicians and so on and so forth, you basically know for sure that these kind of nerdy hackers and so on and so forth, and nerdy scientists, and a long history of Eurocentrism, scientific racism, ethnocentrism, you basically know that that's what's going on. I mean, between you knowing that you can trust me and these people's nature, I think it's very silly to think that anyone wouldn't believe me, especially when you consider my martial art challenge. Okay, you know, martial art challenges, all in Western movies, Eastern movies, are taken very seriously. Okay, the UFC, for example, has a lot of fans, even though it's a flesh-based challenge. Imagine something with religious implications. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. All right. All right, so we're over here. All right, so going back to Revelation 21, you see I needed to explain all that to help you understand. So again, there's a new heaven and a new earth. The sea has passed away, right? So listen carefully. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. Beautifully dressed for her husband. Okay, it's going to the new earth. Isaiah 65 and 66, as I read earlier in this part of the Revelation series. You know, I made this Revelation 21 video, several parts. Okay, so it's a new heaven and a new earth they're referring to. That's made clear by Isaiah. Okay, and I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God." So as Paul said, the people have been gathered up together in a cloud of witnesses, a cloud of righteousness, a cloud of people adorned with fine linen that stands for the righteous acts, deeds, works, fruits of the righteous who are loyal to God, who didn't love their life so much as to shrink from death. So they're gathered together in a new earth, and the new Jerusalem has come down, and they purged out the old. And I've showed you some scriptures that show you that God's work was to purge those who don't belong and to reward those who did his work according to their deeds. And I'm the top martial artist ever, so I'm Christ, the King of Kings. Okay, pretty straightforward, no other way to interpret it without being insane, you know. All right, so they will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Okay, that's what they mean by a new world order. That they're making a new world order of Satan on earth. These people aren't righteous people doing God's work. They're corrupt government people, what have you. So, and corrupt churches and abusing children, all kinds of horrible things. They're obviously making a new satanic world. They put the world in world order. And of course, you see groups like the Freemasons, very pagan themed. They do a lot of research into pagan mysteries so they can, you know, live their pagan lives. So basically white supremacists, you know by their dress, you know by what they've said. You know, if you look up the Masons themselves, see what they have to say for themselves, it's very much about philosophy and science and secularness, right? A new secular order. Novus Ordum Seclorum or something like that, which means a new secular world order, okay? A new secular order, okay? Which means without God ruling, where the order in the Bible is God ruling with, right there with him. He's there with me. He's there with those who obeyed God through me, and before I was born in this world, who obeyed God through whatever order was there, those who didn't cheat people out of their rightful places and so on and so forth. Okay. He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, psychology, propaganda, fantasy, covert drugging, what have you. The idolaters and all the liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Again, pharmaceuticals, we get pharmakeia, which means poisoning, and sorcery. Okay, so they make poisons and they make medicines was part of their sorcery. However, you are allowed to take medicine, but you're not allowed, because what goes in your mouth doesn't defile you. What comes from your heart and comes out of your mouth defiles you. You're not allowed to practice idolatry. You're not allowed to uphold the cultures of America or any nation. You're not allowed to uphold the propaganda construct of the state or psychology, theater, arts, fantasy. You're supposed to make so people live in reality and obey God through me. Okay, and those who can't do that are cowardly, right? That's why he says right there in verse 8, he says outside, but those who, okay, he says, but the cowardly, the first thing he said, but the cowardly, okay? Those who shrink from death, right? They call it a shrink, right? They practices pharmakeia, right? So psychiatry, pharmacology, pharmaceuticals, psychiatric medications, psychotropic drugs, toxic, harmful psychiatric medications, okay? And they want people to shrink from death and conform, right? And they say, if you're 5150, you're a danger to yourself or others. They don't care why that is, okay? They want to take you to the psych ward and drug you to get you to conform and shrink from death and find your life in this despicable, child raping, people raping world. Horrible drug pushing, violence everywhere, just horrible world, horrible corrupt system. They want you to take on some kind of bootlick and idolater culture. It's an outrage. The New Jerusalem, the bride of the Lamb. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came and said to me, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a mountain great and high, and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God.